Police attend every suicide, every murder, every fatal car accident. They're routinely exposed to more death and trauma than troops at war.
Probably in my service I dealt with 100 deaths, I think, you know, in all its forms.
Retired leading senior constable Graham Wiley was with the New South Wales Police for 23 years. As a crash investigator, it was his job to attend serious and fatal car accidents.
When you're dealing with traumas and deaths and nasty assaults and injuries, you obviously do take some of it in, and the more serious or grieving of nature, the worse it is, and it does affect you.
For some police, it's not the daily exposure to dead bodies, but the relentless threat to their own lives that does damage.
Every undercover operation I've been involved in has been dangerous and has been life-threatening.
This award-winning detective sergeant worked undercover infiltrating criminal organisations for 13 years. Work so dangerous she still must remain anonymous.
I've had shots fired at me. I've been in situations where I have been alone with murderers, pedophiles, serial killers, well-known criminal identities, where I ultimately knew I was setting them up to betray them. I never had a gun, I never had a radio. I was just sort of let loose on the streets to go and buy drugs.
Look, I think people completely underestimate how difficult the life of the average police officer is. And the more officers that I see as patients, in a sense, the sadder I feel for them, actually. I mean, I was just talking to an officer yesterday where they were picking up pieces of a human body that was spread over a kilometre of track. So it's the repeated exposure to those sorts of issues, quite apart from the violence against them.
The hidden costs of police work that don't make the news are the psychological injuries police walk away with.
All the accidents are very hard because you're dealing with the grieving of the people that have lost someone. You don't realise how damaged or how police work's affecting you.
The effects of post-traumatic stress can include uncontrollable visions, nightmares, tearfulness and anxiety attacks.
Flashbacks, sort of seeing matters you'd been to before quite clearly. Things that were 20 years old, you're seeing them just as it was the day you were there.
I think it was a culmination of all my years and years and years of previous undercover work that had all built up, and the vulnerability I'd never actually experienced before. I felt so alone. A lot of times I was too scared to go out.
When you go home after working pretty hard, it's like hitting a brick wall. And you can do your walking or you do some jogging and you do your gardening until it gets to the point where it's just unbearable.
While no exact figures exist, the number of Australian police experiencing PTSD is estimated by experts to be between 10 and 18%. That's between 5 and 10,000 Australian police. A New South Wales Auditor-General's report from 2010 showed more than 15% of police in that state were on restricted duties or long-term sick leave. 80% of those with psychological issues.
I was never offered any support, psychological assistance, I could say any even advice. How to manage my feelings, how to manage with different identities.
Affected New South Wales officers say despite the highly distressing nature of their work, support was never offered, and that they believed asking for help would harm their career prospects.
When I tried to seek some support, I was told by one of my supervisors that you just have to decide what side of the fence you're on.
That's why you actually have to have a system that routinely investigates the well-being of an officer without them having to stick their hand up, because you just need to walk through that door with a psychologist or psychiatrist written over the top of it, and immediately you've got a problem in your colleague's mind.
Since 2005, the New South Wales Police Department has run quarterly psychological checks on its staff. One serving officer who experienced PTSD informed Hungry Beast that when he told a police psychologist he was struggling, he was advised to take deep breaths. Crucially, the matter was not followed up.
They do often screen people, but what they fail to do is to have a look at that in the context of what happened last time they were screened. And the point is, a screen is only a screen. You then need to actually carry out a proper assessment.
I haven't seen any changes, and it's sad because you wouldn't want anyone, you wouldn't wish it on anyone, like the PTSD. Even your worst enemy, probably, you know.
The real tragedy is that the New South Wales Police Department has known about post-traumatic stress since 1988. These internal police documents obtained by Hungry Beast show that senior officers believed the problem to be preventable. 23 years later, the police force still lacks an effective strategy to deal with PTSD. Hundreds of officers continue to break down every year. Many are unable to ever work again.
It still saddens me every day that I'm not a police officer, which is such a juxtaposition because they have treated me so badly and let me down when I trusted that I would be looked after.
Do you believe that the support offered within the police force is enough?
No. And I've got no bias or bitterness or anything about that, but it's basically you sort of myself and many people, it's like the cord's been cut from the department and you sort of head off home. Many people I know have got no call or no visit at all. They feel like they're on their own, let alone what effect it's having on their family.